Hey, this is Stills from Drop Dead Gorgeous, and you're listening to Music Existence.
Welcome to another instance of music existence where, because of music, we exist. Tonight, I have with me Danny Stillman, better known as Stills, the frontman of the recently reunited Drop Dead Gorgeous. They just put out their new single in 15 years, 6 feet. We're going to talk about all that. We're going to traverse about everything Drop Dead Gorgeous. Welcome, Danny. Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, the reunion, I understand it was kind of random. How did that start out? Was it like, were you messaging each other? Were you emailing each other? It just was it like
Um, it was kind of like probably like the last like 5 years or more. I think we kind of flirted with it. Um, and we'd kind of text each other and put the idea out there. I mean, like me and Cooper had played in bands since Drop Dead for quite a long time, so um, me and him would kind of consider it at times where we'd be like playing other projects, and a lot of people would be come to our shows and ask about Drop Dead, So it was kind of always in the back of our minds, and we never really like we just kind of went on a hiatus with Drop Dead. We didn't have a formal conclusion or anything, and I think the biggest deterrent from that was the amount of work it was going to take. Because after enough time goes by, it's kind of like starting a new band all over again, kind of thing, and like getting all that together. Getting my voice back in the type of condition to be able to scream when I hadn't done it for
right?
15
Yeah,
years.
you haven't screamed in like such a long time, right? Because you were doing like very clean vocal projects. You were more kind of alternative.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was also a thing, because like after, the first few years, I was like, yeah, I could jump right back into it. But, once like a decade goes by, you're kind of just like, I don't know, can I still do that? And eventually we kind of just like, so I broke my ankle. And so I had a lot of free time on my hands. Um, like last summer. And so I think that's when we finally committed to a show. And once we committed, there's no turning back. So at that point, we were just like, well, we already committed. We got to do this. Um, and then we put in all the work that we knew it was going to take. And I was already like, I was stressing the first few weeks because I was trying to scream and like just wasn't happening at all. And I was just like kind of worried. I was like, can I even do that anymore?
Right.
So after a few weeks, I think I started to slowly get it back, and now I'm still kind of. When you're a lot older, it's just different. So I'm kind of learning new techniques and just new things, new ways to go about screaming, which I never knew when I was like 18 years old.
Yeah.
When I was 18, I kind of just like, when you're 18, you just like try your hardest to sound a certain way, and that's like kind of what came out when I was 18. And so now I'm like trying to re-engineer that madness at like in my
20
adult
years
years.
later, pretty much. 21
Yeah,
years.
yeah, and it's hard to do. It's but it's been working out, and it's kind of been like really cool because when we're working on new music, we all just are so we've evolved so far from those the beginning days. So we're kind of just writing in a way different way than we used to, and so it's not like we're not really short on inspiration because now it's more just like, man, we have so many ideas. Like, what do we pick from, and what makes the most sense with Drop Dead?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have three Dannies in the band, right?
We actually had, yeah, we had three, yeah. Um, so yeah, our other guitar player, original guitar player, was Dan as well. So yeah, we had three, and now we're down to two.
Yeah. So what were those early days like before Drop Dead? What influences did you kind of pick up on that really resonated with you? And really became essential to you as you first got out there?
For me, it was like when I started when I joined Drop Dead, I was honestly kind of from a different scene, like more like the not really metal. You know, I was listening to like Jimmy Eat World, um, some of the early pop punk stuff, like Newfound Glory, Blink 182. Uh, you know, like Taking Back Sunday, Thursday, Saves the Day, all the days. You know, all those earlier emo bands. And so like I kind of brought that to the metal style, and I think that's kind of like where you know we were doing the metalcore thing with a lot more of an emo influence, I would say, vocally, and that's where it came from, was because I was really listening to more of the emo bands, emo screamo bands. Um, so yeah, that was, looking back on it, I think helped us write songs, at least vocally, because I didn't. If I came from a more metalcore background or something, I think it would have been harder to come up with something that's like fresh and new. But kind of like forcing my style from a completely different um like background, I think kind of made it sound fresh. And you know, honestly, I just didn't know what else to do, so it wasn't really intentional. It was just like,
Right.
this is the kind of vocal style that I have, and I guess it works, you know.
So you came from an emo slash pop punk background, and then it took, I guess, the rest of the members to really gel up your own unique sound. So how did you, in the same instance, how did you gel with the initial lineup that you came up with?
I mean, it worked because all the other members also listened to those kind of bands. Um, and they kind of already had the earlier stuff written before I even like came over to rehearsal and started writing songs with them. I mean, I kind of just put my vocals on top of what they had for the earlier stuff, like that first EP. Um, and then it just worked out because we all, you know, everybody listened to the bands I was listening to as well. And I was kind of just starting to listen to all these newer bands in that genre. And yeah, I mean, it just like we didn't think about it much back then. Like, you know, we were 18 and, you know, 15. Like, we were just kind of trying to make the best music that we knew how to, and figure out how to make it come across as, you know, as original as we could at the time, you know.
Mm-hmm. And and to put that in perspective, you were just sort of coming up in the early to mid 2000s, and that was a time when, you know, social media for bands, like for example big one being MySpace, really picked up. And I guess that's what, you know, Dress for Friend Request draws influence from.
Yeah, we had a lot of like tongue-in-cheek lyrics from that type of, you know, scene. And MySpace was like really just starting to kind of take off. You know, there's a
Mm-hmm.
few bands that have kind of done it before us, but we kind of landed in the perfect time period to really take advantage of MySpace and how you could promote with it. Like, we really were, I mean, we couldn't have, I don't think we would have ever gotten a record deal or gotten out of Colorado without MySpace, because we were young and we kind of just knew it was the TikTok of the day. You know, we just knew how to like leverage all the algorithms and stuff to like to get popular on MySpace. And it's kind of just like how people do it on TikTok nowadays. They go viral real quick off of like one video. And that's kind of like what we did in the MySpace days. And it was new. Social media was a brand new tool for bands. Like, so no, even some labels I don't think really understood how how to like use that right
Plus,
off
you
the
can
bat.
only upload like 4 songs, I remember. So you
Yeah.
needed like four of your best songs.
Yeah, you did the four best songs, which for us was easy because we didn't have a lot of songs. And then there's just different things you could do to like try, like people could take um your song link and put it on their page, and it boosted your plays like crazy. Like, it was like astronomical difference once we figured that out. Um and it was just free advertising. Like, that was before like Facebook and, you know, started to monetize all these things. Like, we had all these tools at our disposal that no one figured out they could actually monetize. And so like we were having thousands and thousands of fans post our song on their page, and we were getting from that like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of extra plays and free exposure that I wish that still existed today. Like it's way different today. Like you have to pay for ads or you have to
Yeah.
find a way to go viral on TikTok.
It was more organic too because with MySpace, everyone used the inbox feature. That was your way of really getting the word out. And because the algorithms weren't so, what do you call it, constricted, right?
Yeah.
It was a lot more free form back then. So, I mean, were you ready for that? Did it take you by surprise, or was it like a slow start that sort of built it up gradually?
It was definitely slow, but in terms of today's standards, it was pretty fast. But it wasn't like overnight, but I'd say it took about a year for it to really start to reach a tipping point for us. Um, and yeah, man, I just remember bulletins were huge for us. Like we could post a bulletin and
Right, right. I remember, man.
every friend we had would get that bulletin. You didn't have to pay for that, whereas Facebook, you have to pay for that. Like if you have like 50,000 fans, like you have to pay to reach all 50,000 of them. It won't just organically do that.
But then coincidentally, you would reach like a decent thing of fans without having to like invest,
Yeah,
you
it
know.
cost us. We didn't spend a dime for promotion with MySpace. It's crazy. Like
Even
it
if
did
you were to
so much
put
for
up
us.
like a joke bulletin, it would just reach your friends.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, that was basically, we'd be like, we're playing this town tonight. Come out and see us, and and it worked, like,
Were you surprised like how many people actually showed up just from that bulletin?
oh yeah. I mean, it was crazy. And back then there was only one social media platform essentially. I mean, I'm sure there were some other ones, but the main one was MySpace. It's not like today where you have Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. It was MySpace was it. There was such a scene. There was such a MySpace scene, and they were so like um the MySpace scene was like so enthusiastic, like it was its own little cult following. So yeah, like people would see a bulletin and come out to a show. It's way different than nowadays where if you like post something on social media, you reach like 1,000 people and only 50 of them are actually enthusiastic.
Yeah, like wasn't it devastating where MySpace was essentially a catalyst for music? Like everyone you saw like Hawthorne Heights and Under Oath, and then all of a sudden, like during the buyout, all the music from all these up and coming emo bands was gone. There's
Yeah,
like no way to archive them except if you coincidentally save them on your hard drive.
I know, right? It's such a crazy thing. Um, how that all worked out, because during the MySpace days, we just never thought about it. I never thought in my head like, oh, one day this will get outdated, and there'll be a new platform because like I said, there wasn't a lot there was really no other social media back then, so that's all we knew, and we could have never imagined that Facebook would be the next social media platform or Instagram because it didn't exist. So I guess in my head I kind of always assumed MySpace would always be the thing. Um, and it's just crazy how that stuff changes.
Mm-hmm. So you were 18 years old when you signed your first deal. Now, was it between a number of deals, or were you just that eager and just went with the one you got?
So the first one was there was like one other offer from like another smaller indie. Um, but we chose Rise because they had some bands we really liked, and the second one we had we probably should have been more patient to be honest, but we had a lot of buzz, and we kind of just the first major label that seemed really interested in us, we were just like, that sounds awesome, like Newfound Glory, The Cure, and Angels and Airways was on it. We were like, that sounds awesome. Like, and they wined and dined us, like took us out, flew us out to LA and just like let us go to Amoeba Music and spend as much money as we even wanted, like to buy whatever music back then when CDs were actually like a thing. We bought like as many CDs as we could even put in a cart, and it's kind of crazy. And we were young, so we were naive. We should have known, like, well, if they're that eager to sign us, there's probably a ton of other labels that probably want to sign us too.
Yeah. That's
But
yeah. It's cool that you made a good choice essentially because that sort of propelled you to like a wider audience, and then so your first EP that was Be My Valentine, right?
yeah,
And then what what I sort of uh, gathered as like a highlight track is Love Is Murder, and you actually performed that at the summit.
yep, yeah, we still do. We're playing that song and Forever Scarlet are the two that we play.
Yeah, like how do those feel in terms of like getting the crowd going? I mean, Love Is Murder really sounds like an opener.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's like our first songs, so it's like our roots. It's like when Blink-182 plays like "Damn It" at every show or something. And like the simplicity, the fans love it, and we like it because it's fun to play. It's like it's not there's not a lot of like thought put into it. It's just a fun song to play, and I think the crowd kind of responds in the same way. It's just like a fun song. Nobody overthinks it. And like yeah, the crowd we're honestly surprised at how much they like those songs. And then like we'll go from that and we'll play like a Worse Than a Fairy Tale song, which is the polar opposite, which is super introspective and super serious.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah, it's cool though, because you actually brought a song over from Be Mine Valentine, which is Knife versus Face round one, and then how did you feel about those two versions and including that one in Vogue?
that one was, honestly, we were short on songs for starters. So it was kind of like
So
it
it
was one of
was
those
like a
things.
necessity, right?
Yeah, a lot of bands back then did similar things where they just didn't have I've seen other bands do that, and I think it's just because they don't have enough songs or songs that are better than that. So like we felt like we could re-record it better too because we had a higher budget, and we ended up changing it. It's actually quite a bit different because like there's piano on it, which originally didn't really have any. Well, it had different piano parts, and then we also had like singing added, which we didn't have beforehand. So that was, I think, ultimately, like, I mean, that was one of the bigger songs off of that album. So I think that it was a good choice ultimately, but it was definitely out of necessity.
So going back to In Vogue, I mean that was the album that really kind of launched you. I remember Dress for Friend Request, seeing it on YouTube, and I mean there's also, like we said, Knife versus Face round one, and then Daniel Where's the Boat. But just try talking about Dress for Friend Requests and like what that brings up in your mind.
I mean, that one's obviously a fan favorite, standout track. The piano intro is kind of one of a kind for our band, and just I think in general, it's not you don't hear a lot of that, and it's nothing really repeats in the song except for the chorus line, I guess, and so it's not your typical structure. Um, it's one of those songs that if we tried to write it again, I just don't think we would naturally, just because it's it was kind of just a lightning in the bottle type of song where the lyrics have the MySpace kitsch going on and the tongue-in-cheek lyrics that wouldn't really be relevant today, and then you have just random piano parts in the middle of a breakdown, and then you have uh really the only repetitive part is the chorus, and it's just kind of a break from the heavy breakdown, and then we kind of go into like a hammer-on type of riff thing that um you don't hear a lot of those riffs these days. So it's just it's a very weird song, and it's definitely unique, and I think that's why the fans like it so much, is because really none of our songs sound a ton like that. In Vogue songs definitely have similar parts, but overall, I think it's all the elements combined together that make it kind of interesting throughout the entire song. And um, there's really every time you kind of get used to something, something changes to something new. So it's like a new dopamine hit, I think, for the listener. And yeah, it's a it's an interesting song. Like you don't hear a lot of them today that are like that. A lot of songs nowadays are a lot more structured, and even our songs nowadays are way more structured.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, it's kind of something, a testament to, you know, how much that song has lasted, because even in your later era when you played Club Hell, um, that was when uh, Kellen Quinn was on stage with you, and I was like, "Wait, that's Kellen Quinn?" And then
oh
it said
yeah,
you were playing with Sleeping with Sirens at the time, and they were barely a year old. That must
yeah,
have been something.
they were pretty new, but they were really starting to take off then. Even in the earlier, I mean, I don't know how many tours they had done at that point, but they were just really starting to catch fire.
Yeah,
Um,
so what can you say about the bands that you came up with that really kind of supported you guys, over the years?
all of them were super extremely talented and just hungry. We kind of saw the bands that as we got older, we would see bands, and it just kind of reminded us of that. They were similar to us, like they were hungry early on, didn't know a lot about the industry, but just were making great songs, and the fans were connecting to it. And so I think we kind of tried our best to encourage them and mentor them if we could, if they had any like questions or anything like that. We just tried to be supportive to them. And yeah, man, there's just a lot of bands that we toured with, you know, are still doing some pretty great things. Sleeping with Sirens, like Attila's, uh, Alisana,
Wow,
Lob,
yeah.
yeah, Motionless in White. I mean, there's quite a few bands that we toured with that were kind of getting their start, and now they're doing some pretty big things. Like I mean, we even a long time ago, the early days, like we headlined a show, and it was like Day to Remember, Alisana, and a couple other big bands. And it's like it's crazy to see the things that those bands are doing.
Yeah, and so when you mentioned Worse Than a Fairy Tale, and the production, I think, kind of underwent sort of a change. It was more um so In Vogue was more kind of trebly, kind of, you know, sonically, and then Worse Than a Fairy Tale had a lot more kind of low end. And I think, was Wes Borland involved in that on some of it?
Yeah, Wes Borland, he played some bass parts on it. We had Sonny Moore played a little bit of guitar on it, which was pretty cool. It was Yeah, and Ross played a huge part in that. That was kind of
Ross
like,
Robinson.
yeah, he's a very hands-on producer, and he kind of just took the helm, and like that's kind of where he led us, and we were kind of just like, okay. And um I think ultimately the songs ended up really cool. I think looking back on it, we would have preferred to probably record it differently and just kind of make it um a little bit more produced and sonically more similar to In Vogue, but just keep the same song style.
Ye-
Um, and then Ross came from a completely different time period too. So like In Vogue to him was not his style of producing, because he came up from like late '90s, producing some like early Slipknot, Limp Bizkit, and Korn. So he
Vanilla Ice. You remember when you did
no
Hard to Swallow and Bipolar and stuff?
yeah, I mean, and then, and even he did like Glassjaw and At the Drive-In, so he was and the Blood Brothers, so he was doing some really cool stuff, and that's why we were excited to work with him. And
He's
I wasn't
really
there,
eclectic. I'll give him
yeah.
that.
hmm And he would even tell us, he's like, no one's gonna like this album for like another 20 years. And like when we were doing it, we just kind of ignored it. And I think people like it probably more now than they did when it came out. It's definitely a you kind of have to listen to it, I think, for a while. I think most fans would say that like it's an acquired taste. Like right off the bat, you might not like it, and then as time goes by, you start to appreciate, this the songs and Ross's touch on it.
Yeah, because I think some of that division came from uh, "They'll Never Get Me," "Word with You." Like people were like, "Oh, that's kind of too shimmery," and it's like the band must have wrote it because they had to.
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting. A lot of back when it came out, people kind of assumed that we like sold out and tried to write something that like was gonna like just be more marketable. And honestly,
Cha-ching! Get that
we
money, right?
we actually ended up doing the opposite. Like what we wrote, if we wanted to be more marketable, we would have just written another In Vogue because people were loving that sound from us, and we could have just done another In Vogue 2.0, and that would have been the smart, more marketable move. But people just thought because there was more singing automatically that it was like a cash grab, and you know, it really ironically ended up being the opposite. Like we actually would have been better off going heavier, screaming more, and kind of sticking with the same type of production as In Vogue. But a lot of bands for their sophomore album, they do that. They do something weird and different. I've seen a lot of bands do that.
Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting how your sound again sort of changed because uh, in comparison to a lot of like mainstream bands, especially that were coming up, you know, 2007 2009 period, very squelchy, very pitch corrected, but you guys, you strayed away from that and you were just all raw all the time, even with
Yeah.
like the minor kind of tweakings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we back then it was a lot more raw in general compared to today's standards
Mm-hmm.
with like editing and tuning and stuff like. But yeah, I mean, Worse Than a Fairy Tale really didn't have tuning. We didn't really use auto tune or anything like that, whereas on In Vogue we did. Um, so that definitely made it more raw, made it a lot more challenging for me, a lot more takes. The drums, everything. We didn't use a click track for Worse Than a Fairy Tale, which is like unheard of for
Wow,
today's
so it was
standards.
all like organic. Like
Yeah.
you never knew what you had down until you listened back.
Yep. And if you were to listen to it now and put it in like a modern DAW, like good luck. Like, because I mean, you're not going to be able to get a click on it because it varies, which is kind of a cool thing because it's more of a live feel. Even though I mean, we use a click live now, everybody does anyways. But like, it is a thing that people don't do anymore. And it can add a lot more like heartbeat to it and a lot more emotion and energy when like a part speeds up or slows down. Um, and that Ross was all about feel and vibe, and so he wanted to do that, and it definitely made it a lot more challenging to get the takes down for everything. Really, um, there was just no copy and pasting. That wasn't an option.
Mm-hmm. So was Ross like all organic, like as far as like tape machine and everything, or was it Pro Tools at that point?
He was Pro Tools, but everything other than the tape aspect he tried to do as organic as possible. Like, I mean, I was singing through like a 1940s mic,
Whoa.
a really nice like Telefunken thing, and like he would run my vocal chain through like guitar pedals and stuff. Like he was very um he would always try to do something that other people weren't doing. And a lot of it had to do with like if it sounded really hi-fi, he was going to do something to make it sound lo-fi and mangle it the best that he could. Like we recorded at Sunset Sound, which is like, Van Halen recorded drums in that room, and he was like, "Nope, we're going to move into the small tiny room and record drums in there," because he wanted it to sound more intimate, you know. And he was constantly doing those type of moves, which definitely gives him his unique sound on all of his records because he typically does the opposite of what someone else would normally do. That's kind of his MO.
Yeah, wow. And you talk about not recording with a click track. I mean, everyone takes it too far nowadays. Everyone goes not just a click track, but quantization. So
Yep.
everything to a point is just like there's no, like you were saying, there's no moving around. There's no kind of soul to it. Like a lot of funk musicians used to have like really funky, sort of sloppy kind of
Hmm.
grooves. And I think it was challenging for you guys, but at the same time, it was like you were saying, more intimate, more like organic that way.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely unique in that sense, and I think that people that still listen to it probably kind of feel that whether they're aware of it or not, but on a subconscious level, I think their brain is probably that's probably why they're enjoying it so much is because it is pretty different in comparison to modern stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now
Um,
with with your third album, the hot and heavy, where were your minds at that point and like making a song like two birds one stone and that whole vibe of that album?
I mean, Two Birds One Stone is kind of an outlier, even though it's kind of like ended up being like a really big song off that album. But
So
for the rest of the album, it was it was kind of like it was kind of a middle ground between In Vogue and Worse Than a Fairy Tale. Like we wanted to be more polished. Um, we wanted to take like the things we liked about Worse Than a Fairy Tale, but just have it more polished and more produced, and kind of do it more on our terms with a little bit more of our own input on the production and everything. And so we had editing and stuff. We played to a click, but we also made sure we got really good takes so we didn't have to over edit it too much. Um, and so that was kind of the mindset with that one. And it was just kind of like, yeah, take our last two records, even the Be Mine stuff. Like, what are the things we like about all three of those releases, and how can we try to put that into this album? Um, and so that's what we try to do with the Hot and Heavy. And we had a great producer. Matt Goldman is awesome, and we had a lot of time to spend on it. And Two Birds is actually kind of like more of a last minute thing. It was supposed to be like towards the end of the album as like a electronically produced song because I originally did it as my solo thing and I put it up on like MySpace. And our guitar player Kyle was like, he really liked the song. He's like, why don't we make this like we'll put it on the album and we'll make it like an electronic thing. And so, like the Postal Service or something. And then we kind of were gonna go that route. And then Matt was like, the producer was like, no, let's make this like a real song, you know? And so he kind of had the vision to turn it into a full on song. And like, it was, uh, it was different for us. It was by far like the poppiest song we had ever written. And so it was like, there were some growing pains there.
Mm-hmm.
For me vocally, it was whatever because it's the same vocal parts, so it didn't really bother me either way. But I think musically, it was a hard adjustment because we had never really written a song like that. So I think everyone had to kind of like tone tone the dissonance down and the shredding down a little bit to let the song kind of just be what it was. And then we kind of had like the bridge heavy part we threw in there to kind of make it feel more drop dead and wherever we could, where it made sense, we kind of fit in the drop dead style into the song. And like ultimately, I guess it worked because people really liked it and people still like it. Um, it's like one of the favorites off of that album. So
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Kyle. I mean, his guitar playing like was unique. He doesn't. He wasn't like a kind of a wanky shredder. He did things, but in moderation, it's like shredding things, but then at the same time, textual pieces too.
Yep. He had a very unique style and um yeah, man. He he was never like into super metal. Like sometimes he kind of was into it, but he liked like more like the dissonant like, like botch or something, or like he kind of gravitated more towards like the post-hardcore punk side of like heavy music as opposed to like the metal side. Um but we still had those elements like with like chuggy breakdowns on the earlier stuff, right? And but then he would kind of incorporate his style. He was kind of like me where he kind of came from a different background a little bit. He
You
kind of
were
jumped
both
in.
like a punk rock background, right?
Yeah, and then kind of jumped into the metal scene, and so it kind of like sparked this crazy inspiration of like this like redheaded stepchild of like chuggy breakdowns, but then like post-hardcore type of riffs, almost a little bit punk rock riffs, if you were going to be in a heavy band type of thing. And I think that weird, crazy combination, without us even realizing it, ended up being pretty unique. But it was like just dumb luck.
Right. And and it really is a shame because I remember, reading a post about Kyle and what happened to him, and it was very low key. I mean, how did you guys find out about Kyle's passing?
I heard about it from Cooper, our drummer, and yeah, man, it was really sad. It was just an accident that happened, and it's kind of one of those things where we were hoping he was going to pull through, and it just didn't.
Especially for the reunion, man, right?
Yeah, and it just didn't work out that way, and so it was it was a very sad thing for us. And yeah, we were already kind of discussing doing some songs potentially and playing some shows, and when that happened, that kind of pushed it all back at least I think over a year because we didn't even want to think about it after that. We were just kind of like we weren't ready to even think about that. But I think ultimately that kind of got us to the point where when we did feel like we were ready to do it again, I think it kind of inspired us to like almost do it a little bit for him. Like even when we play shows, I just think about like how much he'd be so happy to be playing shows, and like I think he wanted to
You would
play.
want this to continue, right? Because he
Yeah,
loved you
he
guys.
wanted it. He wanted it more than any of us. And so it hurts my heart sometimes to play these shows and him not be there because he'd be the one that wanted it the most.
he
And
was
so we're
he
just
was loved. I think he even post you guys like the career that he started. After like he was picking up. He was really gaining his own individual traction, right?
yeah, no, he's one of a kind, man. So like when we write songs nowadays, it's like, we kind of just have to do what we were able to do nowadays, and trying to do his style is just gonna be fans. It'd be, it would be we'd let our fans down trying to do that type of style again because we just don't have him in the band anymore, and so we have to kind of evolve to what the kind of music that we write nowadays, and with different guitar players that we have now, and figure out how to make that you know sound like Drop Dead the best that we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. And after Drop Dead, you went in a more alternative direction. You did Bleach Blonde, and then you transitioned from that to 888. And I remember the song Critical Mistakes. I mean, that's not an easy song to, to get out there, especially with the direction of the video. I mean, did you have input on it too?
What, the song or the video?
The video, especially.
The video was interesting because we were thinking when we put it out. It was already getting radio play before we did the video, so we knew had some potential. And so we were like, when we got the treatment for that, we were like, because first of all, it was actually more intense than the actual final one. But we were like, man, is this a little too heavy for this song? And it actually ended up being the best thing we could have possibly done for the song because people like would talk about that video. Like we would, when it first came out, like all the comments were like everybody was like crying at the end of the video, and like even a whole bunch of dudes would be like, "Yeah, I just like this made me bawl," you know, and that kind of really like set it apart and made it go a little viral. So it's one of
It,
those things where you just never know, man. Like the at the time, the smart move seemed like let's do a lighter video, a more happy video, right? And I think if we would have done that, it would have ended up, not going nearly as viral and not reaching as many people and like connecting with them on a deep level.
well, it was a challenging video, of course, but it's a message that a lot of people aren't ready to confront within themselves, which is forgiving the people who made our lives hell.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of the hardest things I think for a human being to do is to forgive somebody that's like hurt them. But at the same time, if you don't, you hold that, and holding on to like a grudge or hatred or whatever it is, is just it'll eat you up inside. And on the other side, people that feel guilt for hurting someone else will also eat you up. So it's just, I think, hopefully it helped some people out maybe to confront those types of things. And it kind of, when we saw the video, I mean, it connected with me even. I was just like, there's been things that I've been holding on to for so many years that's time to just let go of. And like once I did that, it definitely was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and um ultimately just made me a lot happier.
Yeah, especially, well, probably a lot of guys in the scene who like probably brought you down. A lot of people, even like in your own teams, that kind of spoke about you behind your back, or like even more like egregious people that you know it's all a part of maturity. I mean, there are similar events that happen in time where that ultimate forgiveness is displayed, and people are like, nah, man, you should have got like justice, quote unquote. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, you know, being the bigger person does help in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. And like now that I'm older, like the justice at the end of the day is different than you think it is. The justice is you getting over it and moving on and forgiving someone instead of holding on to it. Because when you hold on to stuff like that, the person's winning, like um you just you gotta have thicker skin if you can, and just not let, like, that would be my advice to someone young, is just like, especially in the music industry, like don't let other people get under your skin and like and try to like ruin or taint what's going on in your life when you're young, when things are going good for you. And if you're lucky enough to like catch lightning in a bottle and get some buzz going, don't let other people try to bring you down, because they will. Because when you have success, other people are ultimately gonna get jealous and try to bring you down. And the best thing you can do is be confident in yourself and not listen to what they're saying. Which is hard if you have older people that are telling you things and you're younger. You're gonna listen to them, but at the end of the day, man, like if people are hating on you, you're probably doing something right.
Mm-hmm. And and it gets worse than like ridicule, because in my interviews I talked a lot about the indifference from people, the shrugging of the shoulders, if you will, or the
Yeah,
trolls that like leave you completely like irrelevant comments, and you're like, this is not helping at all. Like,
yeah,
you can kind of deal with ridicule, but like when someone leaves like, oh, this gives me hemorrhoids, or this reminds me
mhm,
of, you know, Susan Boyle, or something like
yeah,
that, like completely irrelevant. You're just like, what the hell? Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm old enough now where those ones I ignore it because I realize that they're just like, it's different when it's constructive. You can tell when something's coming from an honest place and it's constructive, and then sometimes it's, yeah, those just trolling type of
like
comments that,
super vague, and
like,
like
they're
it
going out of your way just to try to hurt somebody, and
it's
those are
like
the kind of comments.
concern trolling, right? Concern
Yeah.
trolling.
I'm like, dude, like you need to get some help or some therapy or something else to do with your life. So like those ones I've grown out of, and they don't bother me as much. But Yeah, man, the internet is a can be a pretty rough place sometimes.
And like it was like usually it was like back in the MySpace days it was using the internet to escape reality, and now it's like using reality to escape the internet.
Exactly. It's funny how that works.
Oh man, but speaking of your more like alternative direction that you took, away from the more abrasive things, I mean, what kind of influences were you interested in implementing?
Um, I mean, I always grew up like as far as alternative stuff, like early '90s or mid '90s. I loved the grunge era. I like the Third Eye Blind and Nirvana, stuff like that. The Pixies, like I always just liked the rawness of those type of bands, and it's just a different feel, than you have. It's very different from like metal core metal type of music because you have like there's a lot more chords and um
Yeah,
the structure's a little different. The drumming style is different. I mean, the vocals are even different. You can get away in that genre with being a little bit more raw, and it works really well in that genre, and it doesn't sound out of place. Like it's not like you can't like auto tune Third Eye Blind. It's gonna sound weird. Same thing with Nirvana. Like you
right.
have to. Those little intonations are what make the song special. That was kind of like the whole grunge movement, and like I've always tried to kind of tap into that as much as I can, with songs where it fits.
Yeah,
Um,
even Pierce the Veil is going in a more grunge direction. I mean, that's a testament to that, because people
yeah,
need those raw sounds. And
yeah,
when I grew up, I'm much more of a grunge guy. In fact, like full transparency, I'm only like learning about you guys in retrospect, because of course I was around as a teenager when you guys came out, but only when I'm older I start looking back and I appreciate you guys for what you did.
yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's funny how that is. There's bands that I never listened to when I was a kid, and now I'm like, wow, I was really missing out on that. or or just yeah, just like understanding like the bands that like maybe you don't even like them that much, but you appreciate the fact that they were kind of like they influenced other bands that maybe you do like, and it's interesting to see that um like historical aspect of it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, how we kind of went back and forth in this conversation. It 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 was something, really organic, you know,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate it. And so like, how have you guys in doing these reunion shows? Are you Did you allude to working on a follow up to Hot and Heavy?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the beginning, I can't help myself. My favorite part of being in a band is writing music. So like,
So Six
I,
Feet is kind of like a glimpse into that direction.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that was our first release. So our new songs that we actually just recorded are, definitely in that vein, but like they're a lot different. Like 6 Feet was like the first song back, so we're kind of still like figuring it out. Like what do we really want to do? How do we want to make this work? Like do we want to go more two birds sound? Do we want to go super raw? Do we want to go like crazy heavy? And we tried to do like the more like old style legacy type of drop dead songs, and like without Kyle and everything and my voice being different now, it just didn't sound right. So like, I know some of the fans would really like that, but I think be careful what you wish for, because if we were to give them that, I don't think they would like it as much as they think they would.
Yeah,
So we're for us, it's like we're gonna play all those songs live, all the legacy stuff. So like, why not write some new stuff? Like we're not, you know, trying to do like new stuff like our old stuff. I think will just end up sounding not genuine, and honestly, will just kind of like cheapen the older songs. So
right.
we're kind of just looking forward with all the music, and we're trying to pull our old influences in and kind of mesh it all together with our new sound, our new style of writing, and different guitar players, and make it all make sense in 2025. 20 years later.
Mm-hmm. Considering the career that you've held for 21 years now, and everything you've worked up to and to this point. What have you learned about yourself, not only as a musician, but as a person?
Um, like I said earlier, I think the younger I would had a lot of self-doubt. Once I would record stuff and I would listen to the outside noise a bunch, and I wasn't old enough to understand that some of these people probably were just trying to like, bring me down, out of jealousy, and and I let that influence like future, songwriting, and like, if everyone's saying they don't like this style, well, maybe I shouldn't do it anymore. And looking back on it, I should have been more confident in myself, and I should have just kept I could have just kept doing what I was doing, and it could have, who knows where it would have gone, to be honest, if I would have just been more confident in myself. Maybe that's just,
So you would have signed even earlier then.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's more the drop dead thing, but maybe I would have just kept doing like the same style vocals instead of trying to change myself to fit what other people wanted. Instead, I should have focused on the fans that liked it and ignored the people that weren't liking it because it was different, type of thing, and um yeah, man. I mean, I think a lot of that comes down to how your makeup, how you grew up and everything. And like, I think I just grew up with a lot of insecurities and self-doubt. And, had I grown up differently, maybe I would have been more confident and just said, screw everybody else. I'm just going to keep doing this. I know it's going to be
So
successful.
even when you were performing, you still had those doubts, even though you were kind of becoming something else on stage.
Oh yeah. I mean, because we were always playing with like really heavier bands, like bands that like we wouldn't normally like tour with. Like we were kind of an earlier band that did like the girl pants, like scene type of metal type
Skinny
of thing.
jeans, kind of.
Yeah. And so like we were like kind of out of place. And so we were around all these guys that really probably weren't our target audience in the first place. So of course they probably didn't like the fact that like the vocals weren't super like low pitched
It was
screams and
like Green
super.
Day when they were in Gilman and everyone hated them in the 80s.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I mean, I think nowadays, yeah, I just learned to, not listen to everyone else and do what feels good to you, and trust your band members and just, kind of have a really close circle of tastemakers that like you can trust their opinion on, and not listen to literally everyone, because everyone's gonna have a different opinion and you're never gonna please everybody no matter what it is.
And what can you say about the lineup that you have now?
We have, Cooper on drums, we have Jake, the original bass player, and then we have a guy, River, playing guitar, who we've done some other projects with. And yeah, that's the lineup right now.
hmm That's really good. That it's all solidified. It's all like, you know, as most of the original vibe as you can get. You know, with
Exactly.
the new energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but anyway, to wrap it up, anything you'd like to say to your fans?
I'm just, so grateful you guys are still around. Like when we started this band, we could have never dreamed of people caring about us 20 years later. It's a gift and a blessing to be able to play for you guys still. And, we look forward to hopefully coming to a state or a town where you're at and you can come see us again. And, we've been working really hard on new music. So, stay tuned for some new music, and, yeah, we'll see you soon this fall.